I get this random phone call on a 7 p.m. and Jamal calls me up and then he's like, "Hey, yo, Chris, I got this opportunity." And all I know is when Jamal calls, he needs something. He needs something. He's like, "I got this new opportunity. I think you're the perfect fit for it. This paper call industry is booming for us." And I always knew that Jamal was really successful. I just never really knew what he did.
All right, you guys. Today we're going to be shooting directly with Chris Diaz. Everybody's been looking for this story. Now we're going to have time for Chris to go through it, kind of see actually how he got started, kind of what his involvement was with the business from the very beginning. Chris, thank you for joining me.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
All right. So, Chris, I mean, let's start from the jump. Can you kind of give everybody a little bit about your background? Um, like, let's start from the very beginning, as far as kind of your transition. Coming out of high school, going into college. Can you kind of walk people through your journey and kind of how you ended up here with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to think that I'm a journeyman in a sense, just trying to figure things out. When I was in high school, I wanted to be in the medical field. Before that, I wanted to be a basketball player, but God had different plans for me when they made me 5'5", so that didn't work out. But that's what got me into the health field because I was always around sports. People got injured. I was like, okay, I can't play ball, but maybe I can help the people that do. So that's what kind of got me more into the medical field of like, okay, I really like helping people. So went to college, went to ASU. I got my degree in exercise science. Took a little bit of time off to just be a tech, learn before I go into PT school. And then the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, it kind of hit me with a realization like, I don't know if I want to go through all of this school to realize you got all the student debt, you have all these hours that you're logging in. Kind of hit me like a whirlwind to realize like, is this what I want to do? So I took that time because the clinic was closed by then. Everybody was, remote. I was trying to look for some supplemental income. And then at the time, I just made the decision not to go that route anymore. So then I got into sales. My first sales job was in insurance. So I ended up I saw this job ad to be in PNC, which is just auto, home, your regular insurance that you have with your families. They taught me how to train. They taught me, they got me certified, paid for my schooling, got my exam, my PNC license within a couple months. And then eventually I got into selling. So, selling insurance for some time. And then all of a sudden, I get this random phone call on a 7 p.m. Um, it's probably 9 o'clock my time, just because you're on the opposite time zone. I was in Maryland at the time, and Jamal calls me up, and then he's like, "Hey, yo, Chris, I got this opportunity." And all I know is when Jamal calls, and he needs something. He needs something. He's always been there for me. Good family friend of mine. So I always knew that there was something that he needed. So I took that call back. I actually let the first call go to voicemail. So my wife told me to call him back. Called him back. He's like, "I got this new opportunity. I think you're the perfect fit for it. This paper call industry is booming for us." And I always knew that Jamal was really successful. I just never really knew what he did. You see a lot of things on social media, you see the cars, you see all the other stuff, but I never really knew what he was doing. So I was kind of curious, right? So he tells me about this opportunity. I'll get you trained up. We got this new platform that we're launching for people looking to grow their business, grow their, in so many different ways. And ultimately, I had a decision to make. I was doing really well as an account manager for insurance. I was really finding my wings. I was the best producer in my county, so I was doing really well. But this new opportunity was in front of me, and I had to decide: do I leave what I studied to do, what I'm doing well at, for something completely different, or do I stay where I am completely fine and see where that takes me? And obviously with my shirt now, I chose to choose EDM. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's also been a great journey since then. Went through a lot of ups and downs to learn a new industry and everything, and ultimately worked my way to being proficient in the industry and the company. I'd like to think I'm confident in it now, but that's kind of my journey as far as where I was before, helping people in the healthcare industry, to now going into sales and now doing what we do now. So.
All right, I appreciate the context, Chris. So let's go back a little bit, because back when you were selling insurance, like, what did you like about that, and what did you see as kind of like some of the pitfalls of doing that kind of made other opportunities seem more viable?
I always felt like, for me, I like the art of making a deal. I like the art of getting something done. And so when I was in insurance, I was a broker. So for those of you who don't know what a broker is, you're not tied to just the Allstate or the State Farm of the world. You have options. So, your job as a broker is to find the best option available for the cheapest price. So I think one of the things that I liked the most was not only the ability and the options to search around and find something. All right, you got this plan. This is the premium you're offering. This is the coverage. But this guy got this. I think this is the offer you should go with. I love like that. There's a certain gamemanship to it, where like when you get a deal done or when you get something done and you worked hard for it, it's very rewarding, I feel. And I think that comes from my experience gaming and just playing sports. Like, the winning aspect has always been something I've been interested in. So that is one thing that I did like, is just being able to get deals done, be the person that you were relied on. Some of the pitfalls that I found from that industry was I'm capped. A lot of things that they don't tell you, even though you are with a brokerage, is your contracts. The commission you write off of policies, it's very capped off by who you work with. I found that when I was talking with other people in this insurance space, you included, I was leaving a lot of money on the table. So I felt like I didn't know what I didn't know. And so learning that there was so much money to be made, but just being in a situation where I'm at the mercy of the carriers, the premium changes, just things that I felt like were out of my control, and just dealing with the cards that I had. It was tough. It was tough because I felt like I could make more for the work that I was putting in, for the book of business that I was bringing in, right? So I felt like that was a big pitfall for me.
Okay. And when you were making that transition and you got that phone call, did I double dial you back to back?
You double dial. You like might have triple dialed me or something. that works too. That works, So you called me, went to voicemail. I don't know what I was doing at the time. Called me again, and I was like, all right, I gotta call him back. So.
All right. So when you got that phone call, what was it that really stood out about the opportunity that I kind of put in front of you that made it as something that you were willing to take a risk with?
I think for me, it was the earnings potential, right? You kind of caught me at a really good time, right? The timing of life is really interesting because you caught me at a time when I was not necessarily happy with the contracts I was getting, but now you bring me with this uncapped role, right? So I think you being able to let me know this is a six-figure job, this is something that you have the ability to work wherever, because my lifestyle, I like to travel. I like to be able to work wherever. At my insurance office, I was a 9 to 5. I had to clock in, clock out. So the freedom to be able to get a deal done wherever was very attractive for me as well. And then also the training aspect. One thing that you talked to me about is you're very detailed as far as like the outline of what you're going to go through. You told me like it is a new industry, so you're gonna have to learn a lot of different things. But we have a blueprint to be able to make sure that you're succeeding. One thing you did tell me was I'm never gonna let you fail, right? And so I saw that firsthand with how you set up the training, going through just general videos, definitions, just the basic stuff. But then from there, you had me apply that on the phones. So I felt like I hit the ground very quickly, and we can talk about that further about my path. But those were the main things that I felt like the combination of having a structure and a plan in place for me to succeed, the ability to travel and work and get a deal done wherever, and then finally, just the uncapped potential. Like those are 3 boxes I needed checked that I was not fulfilling.
Now, when you think about like your initial days as far as getting started, so like, all right, you know that the opportunity's there, the earning potential's there, and now you just got to make it happen. So, what was your first 10 days like working with me, going through everything? What was that like?
So I want to provide context to that first call, right? There's one thing that you did tell me on that call. You're gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me, but you're gonna love me at the same time in this role that I'm gonna put you in. I'm gonna make your ass swim or sing, but at the same time, I'm gonna push your limits to as far as like what you can learn. So one thing that I learned about working with you is that you're a no nonsense guy. You want things done yesterday. And so I feel like that was an eye opener for me, because I feel like there's a lot of managers out there or just people that oversee you that kind of give you a couple things and then they just kind of let you do your thing. But I felt like it was like a coach. If you guys have ever been in sports, I felt like it was a coach. You were coaching me in the right direction. You were telling me when my call sucked. So that was one of the things working with you. As far as the 10-day, if I were to outline it, I went through, you gave me some training. I want to say it was for the first day. You said, get through it in a day. It should take no longer than a couple hours if you really stick to it and take notes. That's what I did. Gave me the foundation to what I needed to know in the pay-per-call industry. What's a buffer? What's, what industries we're in, home services, insurance, all that stuff. Just a good foundation so that I have an idea of what we do. And then from there, the very next day, you're like, all right, you ready to hit the phones? And I feel like for a lot of people, that's very scary, right? There's a lot of people that are scared of the phones.
Were you scared of the phones?
A little bit.
What were you intimidated by?
About not feeling competent enough in what I'm talking about before I make the dial.
Okay. And what did I tell you?
You said you're going to learn as you go, right? You said, you just need to pique enough interest in that person to be able to get them on a meeting. I don't expect you to sell it out the gate because you're not going to be an expert at it. Just book a meeting, pique enough curiosity, ask a couple questions about what they do, and then let the system speak for itself.
And how did you feel when I initially told you that?
I was like, all right. Is it too late to go back on the contract? It's scary, right? It's scary because you really are getting thrown into the deep end, right? This is, like I said, it's really tough making calls to business owners or even just regular people, right? And in my eyes, I'm trying to sell them on something that I just started yesterday. So that's frightening, right? It's not a typical job where they give you the 7 days, the 14 days of onboarding, and then you start dialing. You gave me 24 hours. And then from there, you said, this is how you're going to learn the most, is by making these calls, booking these meetings, and learning from the meetings that we go on.
And like from actually doing it, like your first 10 days, for example, right? Mm-hmm. What did you start to realize as you started to make more and more phone calls?
Started to realize everybody asks the same thing. How much are your calls? Where are your calls coming from? What do you do? Everybody, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, from insurance to financial services to whatever business. It's a conversation. So I started to learn that everybody's just curious about the same things when it comes to costs, when it comes to the originating of media, or like where these, where are you getting these prospects for me? So all of this started to click, and I started to realize like it didn't matter who I talked to, they were all curious about the same stuff. So that's one of the biggest things that occurred to me, was like I don't need to be an expert at anything here, because these are just people selling people.
Exactly, yeah. And when you, like, how long did it take you to make your first sale once you started to get on the phones and book your first meeting? How long did that take?
Believe it or not, it took 3 days.
Okay, it took you 3 days.
It took 3 days. It took 3 days. I remember it too. I know his first and last name. I know I wrote it down in my notebook because everybody remembers their first sale, right? And so I was so happy. But it took me 3 days. It took me 3 days because ultimately the system sold itself. The platform sold itself, right? Any question that they could have had, any issue or obstacle that they could have overcome, or that they had troubles with their past experiences with other vendors, or whatever their marketing tactic was at the time, was solved through having that meeting. So a lot of times I realized what we're doing and what we're building is entirely different than what the market actually has. So 3 days is what it took.
Now, all right, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So
It's not.
like that first account that you onboarded, like you probably got them set up pretty quickly. You're excited about them. Like, what did you learn from that first account?
That it's harder to maintain an account than it is to earn one. And let me kind of dive into that. The account management side of things was an eye opener for me, right? Because yes, now you got them hooked to be able to give you a shot and use our services, but on top of that, now you have to go into QC, listen to how the quality is, so then they can buy more. Be able to check in with them, being able to retrain them on how to use the system. Just be real with them, right? So one of the things that was really eye-opening for me was there is a lot more work than to be just getting them on the phone, landing the deal, and then just letting the system take course. No, you gotta manage it. These are real people that, they look to you to be able to solve their problems. So there was a lot more problem solving that I had to do, that I needed your help on, and my other resources. So I was fortunate to have a team, but
Well, let's go through that real quick. So like, in terms of like account management, what
Yeah.
were some of the things that you wish you would have known when you first got started, or were just getting introduced to the business, that now that you know makes the experience so much better?
expectations are everything. Setting expectations out the gate is everything. If you don't have something, or you know that this person is in a niche market, don't sell them a false dream. And what I mean by that is, I think we get so excited to want to help people that we set ourselves up or set the buyer up for a bad experience just because we're not real with them up front. And I think that was something that I had to learn out the gate. Maybe this person had restricted geos. Maybe they were only in a couple states. Maybe they only had a small budget to spend. Sometimes being real with them up front, as far as this is where the market is, this is how much we're paying, this is the transparency we're giving you. Up front, you may not get a lot of calls, or up front, it may take some time to build, but I just want to be transparent up front as far as what it is, was something that I needed to grow on. So that's a tool that I wish I would have learned, or I wish I would have known growing up into it. The other thing too is I was very focused on just one piece of the puzzle. So in the pay-per-call industry, there is the advertiser side of anyone that's trying to buy media, buy calls, traffic. But on the other side is who's originating the media, who's sending the calls, the traffic, the form fills. There's another side of the coin that I did not know about. So, and I didn't expect myself to, just because I was new, but learning about how a publisher thinks, or how somebody that, how pickup is important, or making sure that someone is available, if you're available to take the call, is important. That is one thing that I wish I would have known, is like, I got this excerpt, or I learned this advice from a conference from one of our buddies, but he was telling me the dance between an advertiser and a publisher is like a dance, the relationship rather. You have to make sure that they're both happy, and you can't let just one person have their own way or the other person have their own way. No, you have to find a balance there. So one thing that I didn't know about bringing on an account was we need to now find the fulfillment for that. And not only that, we got to make sure that relationship is good, where this buyer is taking the calls, they're not cherry picking, because that's going to hurt their EPCs or their earnings per call. But on the other side, the publisher has to be able to send the call. So this is where the deal making happens. And I'm sorry if I'm going really into a rabbit hole, but
This is good.
It's an ecosystem that people don't know about. At first, when you brought me the opportunity, it's being able to help these businesses grow, and you are doing that on both sides of the coin. It's just I wasn't sure about how many other opportunities there were and how much more. My mind was blown from that. So I think those were the biggest things. It's just like learning there's multiple sides of the coin. You got to be able to make them both happy. Setting expectations clear up front. I think these are some really key points that you need up front, just to make sure that you have a campaign successful and that you're making money off of it.
And like from you getting your first accounts to onboarding a lot more, like what did you learn about the different cycles that these different businesses take, where they may be on, then they may stop, then they maybe come back, and kind of what did you learn about that and managing a book of business as you start to build that out?
I learned that in certain industries, business is very cyclical. So in the insurance space, from October up until about January to February, this is where we're making a lot of our money. This is where businesses are able to write policies. I'm talking about open enrollment, AEP, OEP. But on the offside times, when we're out of that period, accounts start to pause, budgets start to tighten, people stop to take calls. So that's where you really do have to round out and not put all your eggs in one basket and really be like water. I learned that when I started bringing on a lot of insurance accounts and agencies, because I was, in the fall. And then all of a sudden, I look at my revenue and it's cut in half come February, and I'm trying to think about like, what am I doing wrong? And the lesson there is you have to expand beyond just insurance or just one market. If a business closes down or if something happens with somebody's system, you have to be able to weigh out your other book of business to make sure that you're afloat. So that's when I was really starting to dive into like the home service and home improvement businesses, into flight industry, because that's a 24-hour campaign, or that's an industry where things are rolling 24 hours. I had to start rounding out different pieces of my book of business to make sure that on my days where there's accounts that are paused, or when the season is not peak for home services or insurance, I still have my rock of other accounts that I can say, all right, this is where I can ramp up and things stay afloat.
Now, in terms of like, you kind of highlighted the publishing side of the business and kind of learning about that other arena, like, like how have you seen like the platform be able to help support you and be able to manage those different sides of the business?
The platform gives me visibility. One thing that I was able to help with my accounts on is not only showing them where things are in the system, but this also allows me to figure out where I need to find certain distribution, right? So if there was a problem with a buyer, for example, and they're saying his calls suck, okay, the first instinct is like, all right, shoot, let me take this to heart. Damn, I'm going to lose this account. But now this allows me to look into the facts of what's happening. The platform allows us to go into the call logs, look at what the person is seeing, or look at what the publisher is sending, and then just be real about what the facts are. It highlights every single call. It gives you transcriptions as far as what the calls sound like, summaries, everything. So then when I have these conversations with my buyers or my publishers, I can then give them the facts, and they have that visible too. So that was a big piece, is like, there's no more he said, she said about what is happening on the calls, or, everybody, there's a reason, there's a rhyme and reason to everything. And we wanted to make sure that was there for the ecosystem. So it made those conversations a lot easier for me. You can't argue if I can play the recording or something right here.
Facts, no feelings.
Yeah. You can't argue with it. So it's, if I don't know what's going on, or I'm flying blind as a buyer or a publisher, then yeah, it's a tough conversation. But now that everything is visible to both sides of the coin, it's a lot easier to have those conversations and manage expectations.
And, you kind of evolved over, how long you been with us now, Chris?
We're going up on 2 years now.
Man, 2 years. It's been a journey, man. I'm so happy to have you here, and to see your growth and evolution is definitely inspiring. You're one of the few people that a lot of people like to talk to when they're getting started working with us, utilizing our white label. You were kind of working with a lot of our different white label users for a long time, and our media brokers. Like, what were some of the things that you saw, like, through the evolution of us releasing that as a functionality within the system? Like, what's your feedback of that overall?
My feedback is very positive, but it comes with growing pains, right? Whenever you're releasing something out to the public, there's so many different patches and there's so many different updates to make sure that happens. But where does that come from? That comes from the end user or the person that's actually experiencing it. So when we were building it, and when you were coming to me with all this and showing me the white label system, it's great. It's amazing. The visibility is there. And as someone that is able to onboard their direct buyers, or their direct publishers, to make sure that they're in the ecosystem to get what they didn't have before, I thought that was ingenious. And what helped me, or one thing that I did gather from my experience with the white label and seeing it really evolve, was like, it wasn't for the, I attribute a lot of why it is where it is now to all of the different features that were implemented from these conversations we had with our clients, right? Hey, I don't have this visibility here, or hey, I think that it would be a lot smoother if we put this in, or put a ticket in for this. So at first, like, it was very bare bones, like it's very simple at first, but now it's so intricate, right? You can see a dashboard of everything that's available. They can see at any point in time how much they're making. So that's really cool to see where the margins are, the transparency. We say that word so often, but it really is in the system. If you want to see how much you're making per call as someone white labeling it, you get to see that call to a T, how much we're paying the publisher, how much our cut is, and how much my revenue is take home. It's very itemized. So there's no more questioning, like, what am I going to get paid out of commissions? And I think that was one of the biggest feedbacks I got from our white label brokers is, man, to be able to track everything is amazing. Obviously, I get the calls, I get the assets from using the system and your guys' network, but on top of that, I get all of the data, and data's everything. So
no, I do think that's kind of, that is a word we use so often, transparency, and it definitely means a lot to us. Now, in terms of your experience working with, like, me, Rita, the whole team, like, what has that been like? As far as your growth personally, your growth professionally, like what has that been like?
It's been terrible. No, it's been great. It's been great. when you work in different job environments, you start to like understand like, okay, this is my coworker, you know, whatever happens outside of here, I'm cool. I can count off of 2 fingers the amount of people that I've still interacted with after I've left my previous jobs. But I don't feel that way when I work with my team and when I work with you, work with Rita, everybody. It's cliche to call it a family, but I definitely feel that way with the amount of time and hours we spend together, right? It's a very real experience because we butt heads. We have disagreements. We laugh, you know, we cry, we do all of the things. But I feel like that's essentially like what makes up a family, is like being there for each other through good times and bad times. And I think we really have established that culture within EDM. I felt like when I was starting out, shout out to my boy Raphael, you know, he's a big part of operations. He called me up and he's like, hey man, I know you're new. I just want to let you know if you need anything, I'm here for you. And this is one of the very first people that, you know, that helped build EDM, right? So I was like, hey, that's really cool to like have that, you know? And he's been my boy ever since. So, and we talk and we hang out outside of work. It's all that stuff. And I just felt like the support I got out the gate was really nice to have. From management to leadership, from you and Rita, you guys have pushed me to really explore different opportunities that I don't think any other manager would. You're not I want to say there's a lot of things that do stick out to me when we have this interview and training. And one of the things that you did tell me is like, I'm not ever going to be mad at you if you're putting the business first. And I think that's a testament to how you guys lead, because you and Rita have always given me like the green light to just try to get a deal done, to make it make sense. You know, you don't restrict me to follow these guidelines. You never got mad at me for any mistakes that I made. No, you got mad at me. Scratch that. You got mad at me. Well, we lose money for sure, but like you've never held it on me or against me for trying to learn and get something done from that. And I think that's a testament to our relationship. It's like I've been really strong.
I think that's interesting, Chris, because it's kind of like I know I'm not an easy person to work with. Okay, I know I'm not an easy person to work with, and I think it's important to give people context because I'm not mean, but you know, we got to work, we got to get stuff done, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you kind of talk through that, Chris? Like, even some of those tough conversations. Some of those things where, all right, yo, this was a mistake. Like, this is going to cost money. Like, what have some of those experiences been like for you, and how have you seen the responses, and what's your feedback there that you could share with the audience?
Let's see. So I think that when it goes back to like working with you, you really care. Obviously, it's your business, and this is something you and Rita have built. So you really do pride yourself on hard work and making sure that a job got to get done, right? Making phone calls is a phone call business is what you'll always say to me and to everybody else. So I think the tough conversations that we've had has just been more on the side of like setting those expectations. It kind of goes back into that, you know, just being able to, I think there's some times where I'd be afraid to have a conflicting conversation with somebody, or like, you know, if somebody had a bad experience, but I got to tell them what it is as far as the amount of credits we give them, or like the rejects that we have with them. It's a tough call, right? It's a tough call to make. And one thing that you've taught me is like, just don't ever be afraid of those confrontational calls, because it's never as good or as bad as you think it is in your head. So I think that was one of the things that I did highlight with that is just making sure that I have those conversations. There's been a lot of times where like I've been in a bind where maybe I didn't set those expectations up right, or, I overpromised and underdelivered. And you've kind of pulled me aside and you're like, all right, Chris, this is what needs to happen next time. This is the situation you're in. You got to be transparent about what it is and let them know. And lo and behold, when I get on a couple calls with them, it's really not that bad. you know. I think a lot of times when people are new in industries or whatever job or life, we get really wrapped up in our head, and that really does halt our growth and our production. And I'm not going to pretend like it's always been sunshine and rainbows working here, and I just went on an upward scale to where I am now. Like I have lost accounts and I have made mistakes before, but I think one of the things that you've recapped with me is like, what did you learn from this, and what can you bring to the table for when you do bring on the next opportunity, right?
And, kind of going through like some of those mistakes and seeing that stuff, like, how do you feel like that's impacted you personally outside of just your professional work and like how you move now personally?
I think that the way that I solve problems now and I handle stress has become a lot easier, because this is in the industry, and you really put me in a position where I will force you to deal with these confrontations, because they're not going to go away, right? And so the way I handle stress, the way I handle things in my everyday life, it's like, okay, this is the problem, this is what they're facing, what is the solution to it? They're feeling the type of way, and depending on the context of things, like I feel like I've been able to like operate off of a no facts, no feelings basis when I'm having conversations. So my problem solving skills and my ability to handle stress has really taken a turn for the better ever since I started working here. All the things that we apply to business and life and handling relationships are things that I can apply in my real life. It's never as bad or as good as you think it is when you're dealing with a conflict. Setting expectations, being transparent. This just goes to just being a good person, not being afraid to make a phone call and get something done. I feel like you can attribute that to how you make a deal done when you're negotiating a car or getting your house. Now you start to see the world a little bit different.
Yeah, you guys, Chris started negotiating with me.
I was like, worst thing you can say is no, You can't get mad at what she made. So.
Can't hate it. Now, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, Chris, where it's like, all right, you're a big integral part of EDM, working with a lot of our advertisers, a lot of our house accounts. Like, I've seen you kind of make a huge evolution in terms of being more involved here. Like, what's something that you feel like now that had you known when you first got started, you could have had a bigger impact at the beginning?
I would say I'm gonna answer this broadly, but then I'm also gonna be very specific in why I say it. Right? That whole thing was broad, but what I mean is, if I knew the knowledge that I know now and I brought it back to help speed my growth up, it would be very careful or be very mindful of how you spend your time. Be very mindful about how you spend your time when it comes to prospecting, because I feel like if I were to spend some of my time looking and not being afraid of reaching out to some of these bigger companies, I feel like that would have springboarded me a lot faster. But it kind of goes into the idea of like, I was in my own head. I was scared that I would fail on the account, or that I wouldn't be able to talk competently, and in a way that I probably was right. But when I'm handling some of these accounts that are spending, thousands of dollars a day, they're just people. They're just people that want the same thing that my very first client wanted. He just wants a good experience, and he wants you to be real with them, that it didn't matter what he spent. You treat them the same way. And so if I knew that this is how everybody else is going to be, no matter then I would have spent more of my time venturing out for some of these bigger shops, these bigger agencies.
Going after bigger business.
Now,
kind of go into like the human side of things. Like, what did you learn quickly about my conversations when I got on the phone with these people?
Now, this is not a regular business meeting. This is not your buttoned up tie. Hey, nice to meet you, Mr. Jamal. It's a very real conversation you have with them. You really do break down the barriers, and you're not afraid to ask the hard questions when you're on a conversation with them, right? And I think like that does get lost with some of these meetings that you guys may be having, or just in life in general, is like people are afraid to be real. So then they have these guards up, and so then you don't really get to the root problem or the root things that are preventing them to do business with you. But I feel like I learned a lot from you just having that conversation, having them relax, just being real with them.
Now, in terms of like being real, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn that meant?
What I learned that meant was that just asking the questions about how much you're actually spending, right? So one of the big obstacles people come up with when you're prospecting is like, oh, your guys' cost is too high, or like, oh, like you guys, this is no way that you guys are getting your calls for this much, or you guys are upcharging for whatever the reason it is. I feel like you really are able to break down with them like the conversation of, this is how much it is, this is how much you're paying for it, this is what your CPA target is, or how much you're trying to back into. Let's make it make sense. So I think just breaking down the barriers of just not caving into like, okay, this is my price point, this is how much, this is where I can be. Like you kind of take it a layer further and figure out like, all right, who are you guys buying from? Like, this isn't what it is. Or, you do play a little bit into your insurance background just because you've been in the weeds of things. So there's some credibility there. But I feel like you just breaking down like, all right, no, these are how this is how many sales you should back out into. This is how much you should really be spending. This is what your contract should be looking like. Just giving them all those like different pieces of knowledge. Make it really like, oh man, this guy is not just the salesman. He's actually like trying to put me onto this game, So I think that's what real means to me, is just like not just going, this is how much I'm willing to pay. This is where my leads are coming from, come buy from me. Like you really do break down like, how's your operation looking like? How many people do you have in that place? How many people do you really have taking that place? Like, you wouldn't be afraid to like actually get into the weeds with them and say like, are we serious? Like, are we actually going to get a deal done today? Or, are we just kind of playing around? Like, what are we doing? So I think that definitely did open my eyes as far as how I have conversations, just because your time is so valuable, right? So that's where I get real from.
And when you started to see these conversations and book these meetings initially getting started, like, what did you start to realize the take rate was of the people that we met and talked to?
You said the conversion rate? Like the close rate?
Yeah. How many people took what we
Yeah, I mean, like, I want to say, like, the conversion rate was probably like 60%. It's freaking high.
So, like, pretty much every other person was willing to give us an opportunity.
Every other person was giving us an opportunity.
Now, when you started seeing this and kind of going through this process, like, what did you understand about the importance of these phone calls? Because this is a phone call business, everybody. Mm-hmm. This is a phone call business. Now, what did you start to realize? Because I find so many people take their foot off the gas once they get their first initial accounts, and they stop the activity of actually what got them there. So, like, what did you learn about that specifically and making these phone calls to keep things consistent?
Oh, I learned it firsthand. I experienced being able to gather momentum, bring on accounts, and lose the accounts and have to scramble to find more. Like, I felt like I did learn that lesson the hard way, where you can't take your foot off the pedal with accounts. I feel like the biggest lesson for me was like, when you get into that high and you start to see like the money that it's bringing in and the accounts are doing well, you feel good, right? You feel comfortable. And I feel like we're so inclined to just be okay with being comfortable that we're not thinking a couple steps ahead on what if something happened? What if the calls are bad or rejects happen or the shop shuts down? You're not thinking those steps ahead because you're just worried about how it's making you feel right now. So I felt like going through that period where I did lose my accounts and I wasn't making as much money as I did before was eye-opening, because I was like, man, now I gotta string a couple good days to keep the grind going, to keep the pace of production going. But as soon as I got into the habit of like, okay, these are the people I need to check in with in the morning. This is my time that I need a lot to find a new business. I felt like I was able to keep that cycle going, you know, where some accounts did pause during seasons, I still had some new ones coming in, and new opportunities. So I think the phone call business, or your mantra of this is a phone call business, really did speak to me, because the second that I stopped dialing was the second that I started, you know, regressing, yeah. And I started doubting myself, or, you know, feeling like I didn't have it anymore. But no, that's not what happened. It's just you stopped what got you there. And I think that's like a testament to life. Is like, don't ever stop doing what got you there in the first place. Like, continue, don't ever feel complacent in where you are. Like, continue to learn more, to grow, look for new business, because you never know when something happens and you gotta hit the back pedal. You gotta stay disciplined.
Yeah, and I do believe that more is observed than taught. And I do feel like you have a unique privilege, Chris, because more often than not, like, you know, you have the privilege of coming to the office, working in person.
Yeah.
You know, we can do this type of stuff. But,
For sure.
like, you know, from observing how I move and operate, like, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you've been able to just observe that, you know, you also have been able to apply?
I feel like one of the biggest things that I learned about you is you are very much in the weeds of things. To be specific on what that means is you will take sales calls. You know, you're the CEO, you're the owner of the company. You still have your meetings, but you will still take the sales calls. You will put new business first over everything. Doesn't matter if, you know, I'm drowning in the pool right there. Hold on, new business call. Here's a floaty, right? So I think that was like a big testament. Is like, the business comes at any time, and I felt like observing you and seeing that firsthand of like, no, this is poetry in motion. This is what it has. This is what it takes to be able to get to the level that you're at. Is like, there's hard work behind that. There's a lot of times where you guys don't see behind the camera the hours that you put in to build the infrastructure, the calls that you're willing to make, or the off times where you're willing to go to a show to meet somebody. So I think availability was the biggest lesson that I learned. It was like, you just always have to be available and ready, because you never know what could happen on that phone call you didn't take, or that opportunity or that call back that you never had. So learning that firsthand on how you do business, just not letting, if there's any issues, just making sure that you're responsive, handling things within, like I said, 24 to 48 hours of when somebody has an issue. That was like one of the biggest things I learned, and just getting on the calls with them, right? Because a lot of times you're instinctively wanting to just message them back or send them an email, but I think we all know that a lot of things do get lost in textlation. And so with you just getting on the phone call with them, now you kind of realize I don't have to play the guessing game on what somebody's thinking or what they meant by something. Let's just figure it out together on the call. So I think I learned a lot from you just being able to not be afraid to just solve these problems here on out, or just like, not have to wait for anything. Because I know that does kill a lot of progress. So those are some of the biggest estimates I learned from you, is getting things resolved very fast, not being afraid to get on the phone with them to resolve those issues, and then just your mannerisms in general with the business. Is just phone calls are everything, and taking those opportunities where they come. New business comes first. Just a lot of different things.
Amazing. Now, kind of going back to like building your reputation in this space, like what did you learn about EDM when you first got into the space? I think you probably went to your first conference rather quickly. Like what did you learn, kind of how we move, how we are in the business, like how we're operating? Like what did you notice quickly from like your first conference experience?
That everybody knows you guys. They treat you guys like family kind of thing. That you're boys with everybody. So I was exposed to my very first conference pretty early into my career. I want to say it was like only 2 months in, right? So my first conference was Contact.io in Denver. You took me out there. You and Rita were kind of like, all right, just so we're gonna know everybody in this thing. You're gonna act like, even if you don't know this person, we're gonna make them know us, kind of thing. And I really did feel like that was the energy you did bring to the table, and that EDM really did stand for, was like, when we move, we're gonna move and make noise, kind of thing, and break some things. So that was kind of what I noticed, was like, yo, everybody knew you from all these different industries. It definitely felt like your reputation, you guys really did hold and take care of, with everybody you've reached and connected with. So that was really cool to see. It really did feel like being with some celebrities, because I was like, dang, you guys got motion, being able to talk to everybody and see these people firsthand. So I think that was one of the biggest things I learned from the conferences, is like, you get a lot of deals done there, just because, there's a phone call, but then there's also seeing this person in person. Like that's like a whole nother level, because you're having drinks with them. You guys are eating together. You really do get the human aspect of things. So I was able to learn a lot from that.
Now, somebody that's probably like on the fence about taking the risk to go to a conference, like I know they can be expensive, you guys. They're not cheap, but like, what would you say to somebody that wants to experience a conference, but maybe is kind of concerned about, the financial commitment that's associated with it? Do you think it's worthwhile for somebody getting started to?
Absolutely, yeah, do it. Like, if I were to go back, I would have done it maybe my first week, which is kind of crazy to think about. But one thing I did learn in the industry was that like everybody's actually trying to help you, or help everybody, right? What I mean by that is they're okay with you being new. They're not trying to gatekeep anything or keep knowledge away from you. I felt like I ran into a lot of people there that gave me a lot of knowledge about getting into the space and how to interact at the conferences. So I felt like that was the biggest thing there, is like, not only did I feel like I had an amazing time meeting some great friends and connections in business for going to the conference, I think that's worth it. But as far as the actual opportunities you get from it, I felt like I've had some of the strongest business partners that I've gathered from attending those conferences. Because not only are you running into people that have budgets, because it's an expensive conference, so you got some money to spend if you're here, right? But at the same time, there are people in our industry that know what we do, that know what we're talking about. So I feel like the conversation is a lot warmer, because they know our name, or they know that they have a need for something, which is why they're there. And so you just got to figure out who it is. And the only way to do that is by having a bunch of different conversations with people you don't know. So, do I think it's worth it to spend that money on an investment in your growth? Yes, absolutely.
All right. Y'all heard it. So, I mean, the other thing that I do think is super valuable for, some people to take away, Chris, is, you know, the notion that they don't need anybody or they don't have any help or what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of go into like what it's like working with the team, or what's it like when you necessarily don't know how to close a deal by yourself, but you need help or assistance with it? Like, can you kind of expand on that a little bit? Because I do think some people have some issues where they may feel less than scheduling a call with somebody else when,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily the guy that's able to figure it out and do it by themselves. Because I think that's kind of, here's the thing, guys. Like, I do believe that egos are real, right? And anybody that's striving to do anything has an ego. So I kind of feel like this is a part, Chris, where I think sometimes some people got to get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And get the help, and sometimes that's intimidating, or it's kind of like, man, am I incompetent because I don't know this? Or can you kind of expand on that and your perspective as far as how you dealt with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. To your point about egos, I feel like it's within our human nature for a lot of people to want to get things right away, or know or be the expert at everything right away, when you're really hurting yourself, right? So I feel like for me, when I started out, I was kind of in this notion that everybody's busy, which is true. Everybody is busy. But one thing that I felt like I had to learn was that, yes, everybody is busy, but closed mouths don't get fed, right? And so what I mean by that is, if I don't ask for help, then I'm going to put myself in a bad spot where maybe I lose the account, or maybe I say something that isn't the truth as far as like, what's factual or what we have or don't have. When in reality, like, you just got to use your resources, right? When you have a restaurant, everybody got a job. Somebody has a waiter, someone's a server, someone's a chef. You don't ask the waiter to go cook something up because that's not their job. And so for me, I felt like I had to rethink about how I run the business or bring on an account, because I know that there's somebody or there's a department or team that's there to help you because that's what they do. So when I need something with QC or integration wise, like let's go to integrations first. I'm not the biggest tech guy, and some people that's watching this may not be the biggest when it comes to knowing how to code or do anything. And I wasn't hired to do that. So when there's something like that needs to get done, I feel like it's my job to put that person with the guy that's used to that's his job, right? And that way things are moving that way, the facilitating, the delegating. If there's something that's a problem with the quality, I can't control the quality, but I can facilitate it and go to the director or the department that handles that. So then they know, like, oh man, you guys have to think about it from a buyer's perspective. I've got all of these different resources. It's not just Chris. Like, man, I got a whole team that's willing to help me. This is not putting you in a bad position. This is putting you in a position where, man, they're serious about helping out my business. So I felt like that was one of the biggest lessons I had to learn about getting out of my own way, is like, if I don't know how to do something, or if I don't know my resources, I need to go to somebody. And that's been very impactful for me. Now,
I think that's one side to it,
Yeah.
but I think the more so intimidating side is the actual sales
Yeah.
and the consumer face. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're a little bit, even you are reserved to request help in terms of bringing on new business. But like, when you have asked for help to bring on new business, have you seen the positive result of that?
Yeah, yeah. And like, I think that is one thing that I want to be very clear about is um, if there's a deal or if there's something that an account or a company that I feel like I'm a little bit way in over my head on, you've never hesitated. You, Rita, anybody from our team has never hesitated to jump on that call and help me get it done. So I think that's been like the biggest thing for me was just relinquishing that, because this is a lesson for me when I'm new is, or when I was starting out, is there's a lot of nuances to the industry that maybe I just don't know yet. And I want to make sure that I'm better prepared for that. So being able to kind of relinquish some of that ego and just ask, like, Jamal, I'm gonna need your help with this. Can you help me get on this call with me? Not once have you ever rejected that or hesitated to help me out with that. But the biggest thing that I will say is when you're on those calls, take notes, right? Don't expect, like, obviously you will never hesitate to help me, but absorb it like a sponge, right? Because all of these questions could be questions that may come up in another meeting that now you're equipped to do it. So really just be present in those meetings, because that's when you really start to learn, like, okay, this is just more ammo I get to put into my cart to be able to use for other accounts. And then you become more and more confident to be able to bring that up to your next prospect. So when you are on one of those meetings, guys, with Jamal or myself or anybody, don't just sit there and just take it all in and realize, man, there's so much I don't know, because I've been there. Like, really just dive in. If there's not something you, like, one thing you did good at was you got on like kind of recap calls with me. All right, Chris, what did you learn from this one? What was your takeaway off of this one? And, we would kind of break down like film as far as how the call went, what were my takeaways, and you'd also give me some key points there that maybe I didn't pick up on. But just being present and really taking that opportunity, because you're taking time out of your day too, for you to learn. So that's all I'll say on that one.
No, that's good. And you guys, new business always comes first, okay? New business always comes first. So, if there's an opportunity or you guys need help with something, like, reach out. Those are always calls that we're going to hop on, take, make sure that we get a deal done. We have to. No, that's great, Chris. Now, kind of going through, like, where you're at today, like, with what you know now, everything you've experienced, all the accounts that you've brought on, like, where is your focus right now?
Whale hunting, right? So it's the same kind of nugget I brought up about what I wish I did before, but it's just a very big focus on bringing out business that will make an impact, right? I never thought that I would be going into boardrooms and having these conversations in person or dealing with that a year and a half ago, but that's just how quick the industries will pick up, or that's how quick that you will learn. So my biggest focus is how I can get the whole team productive and bringing more revenue from these bigger accounts.
Now, typically when you think of bigger accounts, you think of longer sales cycles. It's going to take longer to bring on the business. Now, what have you learned as far as accelerating that process? Like, how fast are you able to onboard accounts now?
I would say like the onboarding cycle on average can take, depending on how big they are. If it's a medium-sized shop, I can get them onboarded in less than a couple hours. But if it's something like bigger, like you said, that does take more preparation to get everything in order, get compliance good to go, just the nuances of a bigger shop that, you know, have bigger budgets. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it can take a couple days. Sometimes it can take a week or so. But the biggest thing that I'll learn from that is you have to be persistent with it. The easier you can make it for them by making sure that everything is organized up front, the better it is to not go back and forth. Hey, I need this. Hey, oh, I forgot I need this. Because then that delays the onboarding process. So just having an organized set of details of what I need from that first call and the expectations up front help streamline the onboarding process.
Very true. Oh, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. Chris, I appreciate you joining me, man.
I appreciate you being here.
This is good, man.
Many more to come.
And, you know, Chris, I'm sure you're an accessible person. You know, anybody that's watching this, what's the best way for them to connect?
Best way to reach out to me is either on LinkedIn or on Teams. I got my email as well, but the best way is my phone. So I don't know if you want to go and drop that, but yeah, I mean, you can reach me in all different ways, but I think the best way to reach me is, you know, through Teams, through Outlook, booking a meeting. We can get things done on a call.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, if y'all want to call Chris, reach out, get his phone number. But you guys, thank you. If you guys do have any questions about this, you know, drop them down in the comments below. You guys can reach out directly as well. You know, we're here to help you guys. I want you guys to see the reality of things, okay? Mm-hmm. Not everything's perfect, you know, but going through the cycle, sticking with something, staying consistent, like the momentum does build. And once it does build, you can take off like a rocket ship and things become a whole lot easier to be able to start compounding. Chris, thank you again, man. It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure being here.
Thank you, man.
All right.